In this episode, I take a one lens photography challenge.
All right, let's get it. Well, hello. We're taking the macro lens out for a spin. Well, hello there, good people. It's your boy Johny-J, and welcome to another photo adventure. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. As I mentioned, got the macro lens on. So we're gonna do a macro lens challenge. But what I wanna prove to you is that something I hear a lot, particularly in my community, is that I don't have any good things to photograph locally where I live. Shout out to Narelle in our community. She's just amazing. She's got all these birds that come into her backyard. She's creating amazing photography right from her house all the time, which is just awesome. So this has inspired me to do this challenge. So I've come to my local park. It's literally, 2 minutes walk from my house, okay? All I've got is my macro lens, and I'm gonna prove to you that you can take good photographs anywhere, okay? The beautiful thing about a macro lens, one is they're not that expensive. You want something around 100 mil. That's what's really important with a macro lens. You want that reach. You don't want anything too short, okay? 90, 100 mil, something like that is perfect for a macro lens in the focal length, okay? The other beautiful thing about a macro lens is you're fully in control of the environment, meaning, you can soften the light. You've got such a little area you're working on. It doesn't matter what the rest of the world's doing with the Mother Nature's throwing at you, that harsh light or that soft light or whatever. It doesn't matter. You're in full control of that little macro environment. So that's what makes it super exciting. The other thing that's cool about it is that it's easy to remove distracting elements because you've got such a shallow depth of field. You can throw the background out and remove everything and just focus in on that subject that you're looking for. I think macro lenses are a great addition to anyone's kit. I highly recommend it. And let's get started and see what I can create just here in this local park in my own area. What's happened this morning is we've got this beautiful overcast light, as I mentioned earlier, and the sun is so soft right now, and we've had some rain overnight, so there's all this beautiful droplets around. And I'll show you what I'm looking at here. Get a load of it. It's just one single little droplet hanging off this little needle here, leaf, and we've got a nice flat background, all consistent color. One thing that's really important with macro photography is your background is just as important as your foreground subject. So making sure that background isn't cluttered, it's nice and free and simplified, that bokeh area. That is really, really important because you can have distracting elements that are just slightly out of focus in your bokeh area too. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to find macro compositions, that your background is just as important as your main subject. All right, back to our little fella here. So I'm at about 1/200th at the moment, f8, and I am in consistent shutter. So if I push the trigger, you can see it's just taking multiple photos at that. I really want that. I need to be on a tripod for this sort of thing. It just makes your life so much easier when you do have a tripod for your macro photography because everything just stays lined up. But one thing I am doing here is you'll see with my focus, I'll go down here, I'm in continuous autofocus, okay? And you may be thinking, continuous autofocus for macro photography? What are you thinking, Johnny? What are you thinking? You should only use that for fast moving things and wildlife. But get a load of this. You can see I've also got my focus here on the zone area, which means I have this zone that I can move around, okay? And because your macro stuff's so small, it's just the slightest bit of wind is blowing it in and out the frame. So if you were to manually focus on this subject, or even just use single point focus, by the time you focus and take the frame, there's a chance that it's moved and it's out of focus. So the idea here being is we're in continuous, my camera's constantly focusing on our subject here. I'm taking multiple frames like this, and I'm able to grab one of those where it's focused in right on that droplet, and that's gonna get that sharp focus. So let's have a look here. Let's see if we got one. Oh, that one is tack sharp. I really like that one. That's tack sharp focus. So of course we will be having to crop this image in post, but I think that's a good start. It's one in the bag. Look, is it a portfolio image? Probably not. That's not what this is about. This is about getting out and just creating, finding things locally to where you live, just to go out and take photographs of. And the more we get out and photograph, the better we get. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, walk no more than 20 meters and we've found another little subject here. And if you've seen the YouTuber Simon Booth, I'll link his thing in the description. This reminds me of something he would shoot, leaf litter on the ground. Of course, where he is in the UK, the leaf litter is way more amazing. But hey, this is still pretty cool. Let me show you what I'm looking at here. You can see we've got this single yellowy leaf in this more decayed browny background. And to me, the contrast between those two elements is really, really nice. Also got the leaf coming into the frame on a bit of an angle here, you can see, which I really, really like. For focus for this one, you can see my screen looks a little bit red. So that's focus peaking. That's helping me get my manual focus. For this one, because we have, you know, a static subject that isn't moving, it's really easy for me to get focus here. I just switch it to manual focus. I get this little zoom in effect. I get a racket till my leaf is zoomed in, and then I can quickly press my shutter. It's gonna pop back out there, and I can see everything is nice and sharp there, which is really, really easy to get focus for a subject that's static like this. Something else that's really important to get a shot like this in focus is something called the plane of focus. And what that is, it's basically, if you think of the focus that's coming out of your camera, like that, if it's got it, the subject has to be parallel with the front of the lens, okay? Because if this was the lens over here and your lens wasn't parallel to your subject, what's gonna happen, wherever you focus, it's gonna drop off and not everything is gonna be in the plane of focus. So the idea is you want anything that you've got, and where you can, the thing that you're trying to get in focus, you want it to be parallel to the front of your lens. And that's gonna get the subject in the plane of focus and help you get the whole thing sharp. So you can see here on my tripod, I'm pretty much parallel to my subject, my leaf down the bottom there. And that's keeping that on the plane of focus, which is really, really cool. All right, so with this one, it's still 1/200th here. We've got a manual focus, f8, about auto ISO is coming up about 2,500, and just gonna take a couple of shots at that. Don't have to worry about it. It's quick enough shutter speed. I'm not worried about a 2-second timer, but what I am gonna do is definitely review this back. So let's play that back. Let's have a look at our subject here. And what's important to me is to make sure this leaf is nice and sharp. That is looking really good. Also just gonna double check around the frame, make sure the rest of it's pretty decent there. I think for me, what makes it is the extra little droplets of water on the leaf. I think that looks really, really cool. All right, let's keep walking and see what else we can find. All right, you can see I'm just in the middle of the park on the grass and I found this really, really tiny little yellow flower. And it's super cute, even though it's a weed. Don't tell anyone it's a weed, but it does look cool. All right, so let me show you what I'm looking at here. So you can see we've got this cool little flower here, and again, it's moving in the wind. So I've gone to that zone focus to put it in a zone in my focus points, and I've gone to that constant autofocus. You can see when I autofocus on it there, looking pretty good. I'm at about f8 for this one. 1/400th. I've actually cranked up the shutter speed a little bit more because it is moving a fair bit. I may even need to go a bit more. That was a fairly big gust. And that's the thing, you know, you want to take your shot when the breeze stops, okay? In between those little lulls of wind, that's when you want to take your shot. The other thing that's important to show you here, you can see these brown patches. This is what I was saying about how distracting the background is. So I'm actually going to get and move those leaves there. You can see those brown leaves there. Oh, they don't look very nice in the background. So I'm actually going to move them out of the way. And I have no problem doing this, you know, moving a few leaves around my subject just to clean things up. It just makes for such a nicer image, and you're not really destroying anything. You're just moving a few leaves on the ground, okay? So don't feel bad about that. So I'm at 1/500th, f8. ISO still on auto, it's getting about 500. I'm just going to take a few shots of that, And I just want to make sure my depth of field's right at f8. So I'm going to play those back now. Yeah, that's good. I actually don't mind that drop off there. That's looking pretty good. Now, you can see, even though the sun is quite soft, okay, what's happening is it's still, I'm in direct sunlight here, and it may be a little overpowering for your subject. So there's a couple of things you can do. You can just use your hat and put your subject in shade. That's one way to do it. You know, because you're dealing with such a small area, you can really control the light. But what I love are these little, one's a reflector, that's a reflector, and this is a diffuser. They're just by Westcott. I love these little things. Whenever I get my macro lens out, I keep one of these in my bag. And what that's gonna do is just soften off that light even more there. The other thing is, sometimes when you diffuse the light, what happens is you wanna get a bit more light up under your subject. So you can bounce light with this reflector, which I really, really love. So you can see that's with the reflector, that's without the reflector. It's really, really subtle there. You can see it's getting a bit more light up underneath it. So I tend to use these sometimes together, and I find it gives me a nice soft light on top, so I can use it like this. You know, I can bounce a bit of light in, but shade a bit of light on top. So if you're ever in harsh conditions, I recommend these things are just awesome. The other thing you can use to diffuse the light too, just a white plastic bag or something similar, a sheet of paper. There's plenty of things you can use. You don't have to have a special, you know, reflector and diffuser like I've got, but I do like these. They do come in handy. Let's go back to our photograph here, and let's just see. I'm just rocking it back and forth, having a look at our subject there. Yeah, I'm just going to bounce a little bit more light up underneath. That's nice. Just getting some light, bit of extra light on the edge of that stem there. Yeah, cool. And you can see, look down the bottom there, you can see that extra little bit of light being reflected up underneath it there. That looks really cool. I'm liking that. All right, that's it for the fieldwork bit. I'll see you back on the computer.
So here's our first subject here, and something I wanted to mention is with any photography, there's a couple of ways to get your subjects to stand out, okay? One is like this one, where you've got a shallow depth of field, and I think this looks really, really cool. The background's all blurred out. You can see there's no distracting elements. Works really, really well. There's a cool reflection in the little bit of water there. Another way to have your subject stand out is color. So color can do it as well. You can see I've sort of desaturated the background, and the leaf is more saturated and brilliant. It was like that in the field, but I've enhanced that even more, and I'll show you a tip for that in a minute. And the third way to bring your subject out is also contrast, and I'll show you how I did that in this photograph. So not only did I desaturate the background in this image, I also removed a bit of contrast, okay? So it's sort of three ways, and there's also a fourth, which is dodging and burning. You know, exposure can bring out different elements in your frame as well. All right, so let's go back to this one, and I wanted to just show you what I did here. So I used the relatively new point of control feature here in Lightroom. I'm just going to double tap that, reset it there, and I'm going to get the eyedropper here and click on the leaf on that collar there, and I'm going to tick this little box down here, visualize range, and you can see it's done a pretty good job there of making that area really stand out. And what I want to do is I'm just going to add a bit of saturation to that leaf right onto that color there, and if I turn that visual range off, and let's do before after, it's just giving that leaf a bit more pop, and it's not only, it was standing out before, but it's standing out from the background even more now. The other thing I did do, which I'll quickly show you, is in the mixer here. If I reset this, the oranges here, you can see the oranges down here are quite saturated in this image, and they're the background elements. I don't really want them standing out as much. So if I go to the color mixer again, go to mixer, saturation, grab this little point tool here, and if I click on the oranges and just drag down, it's going to desaturate that area there just a little bit as well. And that's, again, you know, that's desaturating that background and helping that leaf stand out even more, which I think looks really, really good. So let's have a look at this fella here. I'll just delete the mask that I did do. There is a bit of a custom vignette that I've put on this one, but I'll leave that on there for now. But what you can do here is I hit this plus button and I go select subject here, select subject, And then once I get select subject up, I want to right click on it and go invert, and that's going to select the background now. You can see exposure was turned up. So that's selected the background now. And what I can do from there is I can lessen the contrast of the background because the greens and the yellows are really close together. I want to get more separation from that yellow flower, okay? So then what I'm going to do is actually desaturate the background just a little bit there. And if we have a look at the before and after, before, after, before, after. So with that little bit of saturation removed, you can see we've still got that lovely green in the background, but our yellow now is standing out even more. So I'm going to create a new selection here. I'm just going to select subject there, and that selected that subject again. Beautiful. And this time what I'm going to actually do is bump the saturation, the yellows up a little bit there, and I'm also going to open up the shadows, so just to brighten things up there a little bit. And I might just hit the whites there a little bit just before they're clipping. And let's have a look at before and after that. Before, after. And now that's just brightened things up against the background as well. So that's using exposure or light, you know, to brighten things up and give separation between that background even more. So if we do the before and after of all the masking now, you can see that's before, after, before, after. And you can see the flower just pops off the screen a lot more. Really happy with those photos. They turned out great. Alright, that's it for this one. Thank you so much for sticking around and watching. Hey, if you want to show me some love, support the channel, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment below. If you've got any questions, chuck them in there as well. More than happy to help out. And if you want to see more of these videos, please subscribe and ring the bell and you'll get notified. Alright guys, that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one. Peace!